I'm Duncan from Enphase, and it's really great to be with you this evening. And today we've got a really interesting opportunity to work with Mick Harris, who's here on the video with us this afternoon. And Mick has kindly said he'd come and join along the webinar and discuss his experience in solar, his journey in the solar industry, and really share a perspective for you from an installer who's been in the industry a very long time. And I think that you're going to find Mick's suggestions and advice and knowledge highly valuable this evening. A wonderful comment just came through in the chat, Mick. It says, Merry Christmas. It's Christmas at Mick's house tonight.
Yeah.
That's good to see that video's working on your home computers and phones. So great stuff. I love it. So it's all about taking your energy further with Enphase IQ batteries. And with each of our webinar events, what we're really aiming to do is to try to bring some new ideas or concepts into this style of webinar. So you as system owners, or maybe you might be considering batteries, you might have had systems for a long time, you might have had a number of different systems over the years, moving house or upgrading your existing home system. So all of those things where, we want to encompass and trying to give you some really good perspectives about solar and maybe some fresh ideas to boot as well. So the key topics we're going to cover, of course, Mick and I are going to jump in and have a good conversation in a moment. I'd like to introduce and just cover off the Enphase energy system to begin with. We'll just some key touch points about the products we supply, as well as some of the features and functions of the IQ battery system. At the tail end of the webinar, after Mick and we're probably going to be, having a discussion for 40 minutes or so, is that I will touch base on the rebate again, as I did the previous webinar, just to give you some understanding about the changes to the rebate, and if you are considering storage, how to navigate through that. I'll also share with you some home energy management and next steps, as well as our upcoming webinar. So all good stuff. I think you'll find this very engaging. So, of course, we've got Mick from the Envirogroup, and I just wanted to quickly, beginning slide before we start going deep into a Q&A with Mick. Mick's, I would really say he's one of the founding members in the solar industry. Mick has been over 40 years on the tools, and he's one of the longest, oldest retailing businesses in the solar industry. In fact, Mick has got an array of skills, knowledge, and experience across some really interesting environments and geographies, such as Timor-Leste, where he spent a lot of time tirelessly giving up his spare time to do renewable energy systems and doing support work across countries like Timor-Leste. So we've got some really wonderful areas that we can go to in our discussion. And again, we'll be on with Mick in a moment. But before we get there, I'd like to give you some context about the products, just so that we can draw this into the conversation as we have our discussion tonight. Now, with Enphase, I'd like to just sort of make some touch points about the products. We describe the Enphase system as the Enphase energy system. And because it is a system, we're not only talking about solar anymore, we're talking about storage, we're talking about home energy management, might be EV chargers, a whole host of equipment in the home. And there's a lot more interest and demand for a diverse range of use cases for people to gain energy independence and really get some positive benefits and impact in the home. So we've got some 4 key product areas that are currently supplied in the market in Enphase. On the left there, you'll see solar microinverters. Solar microinverters are the devices that are under each of the solar panels that Enphase manufacture the microinverters to go under the solar panel on the roof of the building. And we take that microinverter and we actually slot it inside a battery as well. So it's a very unique proposition, the microinverter technology, and it's been in Australia now for over 15 years. And it's had a very good reputation in the market and uptake with system owners. And that's generally, I believe, because of the versatility, the flexibility of the product. And we're seeing a lot of systems now going in that have been in quite a few years, and people are starting to expand or add to their systems. And this is really one of those use cases for the product that really lends itself to helping you adjust and modify your solar in your home as your needs and your home's energy demand changes over time. Of course, with that, of course, there's the Enphase IQ battery. We call that the IQ battery 5P with flex phase, and that's a modular battery system and completely expandable as well. Now, we do offer also EV chargers as well as a hot water IQ energy router for controlling hot water system and managing that. So bundle all those things together, and we have a home energy management system. And the nice thing about those systems, like the example in this garage here, I think that might be your bike there, Mick, laying on the garage wall there.
Maybe.
These home energy management systems create a lot of flexibility and versatility. And something in the webinar I like to sort of discuss with you is sort of to understand the picture of how it might fit on the home, and what decisions are made to sort of apply the products in the areas available in the home to get the outcome you need. So in the example in the image here, you're going to see 5 products on the wall. So there are 4 IQ battery 5Ps, and you'll see right over here on the right-hand side, that square box just to the right-hand side, or rectangular box, that's what's called the system controller. And that box there is the energy management device. There's a device inside that controller, which is looking at the batteries, looking at this, the solar panels, gathering all that data, and then uploading that data to the Enphase cloud over the internet. You might add an EV charger and a home energy management system on this installation as well. And so that's in the basic concept. I won't go into more detail tonight. There's certainly more information on the Enphase website as well. Or you can speak to solar installers like Mick at Envirogroup. They have a wealth of knowledge and information that they can share as well. But just to touch on the battery for a few more moments, how we like to describe the Enphase battery. Enphase does a fairly simple product range. 1 microinverter with a range of models in that type. And we've got the 1 IQ battery 5P with flex phase. And the idea is that one product, but you can add to the installation and have up 5 kilowatt hours as a single unit, like it shows on the slide there. And you could have a number of units. So you could have 14 of those batteries on the wall if you chose so. I mean, obviously you'd need quite a wall to do it. But there is that flexibility. And we have seen larger and larger systems going in with the rebates. And it might be a topic that comes up tonight in the conversation as well. And with the IQ battery with 5P with flex phase, just some points to note on the slide. With any battery rebate, batteries need to be VPP compatible. Enphase is compatible with Amber. A lot of talk from homeowners about Amber. You do have that option to connect into the energy retailer, which will allow you to dispatch the battery energy into the grid and maybe take advantage of some additional pricing, feed-in pricing from storage as well. So that is an option to you as a system owner. The other benefits with the battery is it's obviously rebate eligible, and it has a long durability with a 6,000 cycles and 15-year warranty. One of the longest warranties in the industry, gives you a lifelong outcome and benefit from this product. So the final information slide I want to share regarding the battery is the concept of durability and longevity means that those savings can come back to you as a system owner. You may have discussions, and I'm sure Mick will be describing this regarding if you invest up front and do a good job of making the right decision for the home, even with additional investment, you will see those returns extend into the long term. And so you can get good benefits by using high quality equipment. And so with Enphase, that's really the goal of our product. We try to design a product for you that's going to meet your needs and expectations over the long term. And so just probably a good slide for me to finish on as we bring Mick into the fold here, is I've got a couple of, 4 design images on the screen here. And what I'm really trying to show you here is that, installations do happen in different shapes and sizes. And you might even see on the screen, you can pick up some examples here. For example, you might see a 2 battery system here on the left, and you can see a cable feeding through the battery. Even on the middle system, no cable at all, just a clean battery on the wall. So depending on the site and the installation, you will get different configurations according to what type of building you have, what the materials are on the wall, and how the battery can fit, and then be connected across the home. So all of those decisions are made by the installer, and I'm sure we can come back and spend a bit more time talking about those installation decisions as well in the home. So that's my piece for the intro. For the next section, we've got Mick Harris here on the screen, and I'm going to zoom in. And I think just as a reminder, let's pop up a Mick and Envirogroup image here, which is a good one. Maybe, Mick, you'd like to share a bit of a discussion here to warm us up for the session about the information on the slide here.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, everyone, it's great to be talking to you. Webinars are strange things, aren't they? You know, you're sitting at home, I'm sitting at home, and we're not really connected, but we kind of are. I imagine some of you out there might have met me, or, you know, we might have crossed paths at some stage. Most of you won't know who I am. I'm just this old guy who's been around for a while. But anyhow, this photo, this was at Mount Alexander College, Secondary College in Flemington. So it's a school near where the freeway out to the airport starts. And this was a place where we did a solar install. And so I was up on the roof there. That's Jake, who's our head electrician. That was a good little project that we did recently. Yeah, so that's that. Let me say a little bit about Enphase. So Envirogroup, the business I'm involved with, has been around quite a long time. And we were one of the first mobs to start using Enphase. And the advantage of Enphase is that it's very flexible if you've got a site that's a little bit difficult. So if you want to put some panels on the east, some panels on the west, some panels on the north, maybe some on the south, maybe some on the southeast. Enphase is very flexible because you get the maximum output from every panel, no matter what direction you face it, and no matter how many panels you can put on different orientations. So it's very useful in that way. And so that helps boost the performance and give you a better output. The other thing is, of course, it's great when there's trees and you've got partial shading of arrays. So anyhow, that's that. Are you happy with that slide? Do we want to swap that one over?
Thanks, Mick. Yeah, we're going to zoom out from there, and I think we'll just put ourselves on the screen. I'm going to quickly ask you a question here.
Yep.
So whereabouts is Envirogroup based in Australia? We've got a lot of people on the webinar.
Yeah, sure. Very good point. So we're based in Melbourne, down south. So those of you who are up north, you're lucky because it's warmer. And if you're down in Tassie, well, you've got a lovely place to live anyhow. So yeah, we're based in Melbourne. So happy to help people around where we are. And there's lots of other good mobs around who can help you with Enphase around the country. All
right, we'll just zoom in there, Mick. And I think let's keep rolling along. And I saw you've talked a bit about your history. What I'd love to do is get a bit of context. Obviously, I'd be curious to know, I'm sure a lot of people would wonder, how on earth did you get into this world of solar so many years ago? It's would have been pretty niche back then, right?
Yeah. So I first started in solar around 1980. So that's when I did my first installation. And back in those days, you know, when I was a kid, you know, I had a little science kit, had a little solar panel in it, tiny little thing. And I thought, oh, this is really cool. I can get electricity from the sun. How wonderful is that? You know, from there, the knowledge just develops. You get electronics magazines and things, you learn. And before you know it, you know more than anyone else. So the first system I installed was quite small. It was in a little town called Walhalla, which is in the mountains in Victoria. And that was a little baby system I installed. But the first time I got to know Duncan was much later. So I got to know Duncan about 20 years ago, and I'll show you how. So Duncan mentioned the East Timor stuff. So here we are. Here's a little gadget. So have a look at this. You can see this. This is actually a little system that we were installing in East Timor. And what's in here is we've got a controller, we've got a battery in there. We would go into the villages and we would put a small solar panel on the roof of the individual houses. And it was only about a 40-watt panel or a 20-watt panel. It was quite small, connected through to this. And then we had these lights in 3 or 4 rooms. And the aim was to give people some light, because over there in the villages, they would basically use candles, or they would use oil lamps or things like that. And so in the end, so the project we did over in East Timor, we did health clinics, we did police stations, we did admin buildings, we did the odd hospital, but we did thousands of these, thousands of them in people's homes in the villages, because we always wanted to help the poorest people in the villages. And this looks really agricultural, because we actually paid a local business to make up the wooden boxes. And because we wanted to do that. And I used to go to the villages and train the technicians, because we got the local people to install the systems as well. So that's how I got to know Duncan.
Yeah, we met and did a lot of time in Timor, which was great fun. And over those years, we've kept working in the industry. And I was really interested to see that, what I would call a box.
Yes.
It looks pretty rudimentary, right? And I think we discussed this when we were sort of preparing for the webinar, and it's so interesting. And I love that as an example of what have we come from and what the industry now does. I mean, you and I discussed this. I mean, we could not imagine now building a bespoke timber box to create that's a self-powered standalone power system in that box. Nowadays, I mean, the stuff's on the shelf, right? And you can get some very high-tech equipment. And you were making comment about that now, like technology's improved. And of course, that's one of our discussions tonight, is really understanding how it's come in leaps and bounds over the years that we've been in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I want to show people one more thing, and I want to invite them on the chat to actually put something in. Now, my screen is set up so I can't see the chat, so someone else will be able to monitor that for us. But I got to show you this.
Yeah.
So have a look at this. So this is something I got as a bit of an award from the Solar Energy Industries Association, because I'm old and I've been around forever, and people like me get awards occasionally. Anyhow, this I think is terribly interesting. See this solar panel I'm showing you, everyone? Have a look at that thing. This is from 1979. This is what you used to be able to buy off the shelf if you wanted a solar panel. And what I want you to guess and put in the chat is how much power this thing puts out. So power is rated in watts. So you've got to have a guess at how many watts a panel like this would put out. Now, I'll give you some context. Today's solar panels that we're installing are typically between about 450 and 500 watts per panel. Now, of course, the current panels are much, much bigger than this baby. You can see from my head, it's about the size of my head, maybe a bit bigger. So have a guess, put it in the chat. I'm interested to see what people think this will put out in watts. And once again, you're comparing it to a big panel that puts out about 450 or 500. Now, can someone who can see the chat tell me?
Well, you've created a furor for the masses here, Mick. We've got a lot of answers coming through.
Oh, wow, good on you.
I reckon just about every iteration of solar power output, panel output has been written down here.
Oh, but let's pick the lowest and highest. It's a pity we don't have a prize.
Majority, yeah, we'll work something out. We can work something out. So we can see the answers after the webinar. So maybe we can send out something special to the winner. So a lot of answers are 20 watts with a question mark. There's a few less. Someone even put 1 kilowatt, which is pretty, that'd be great. Pretty generous, 1,000 watts. But there's even a 1 and 2 watts. So I can keep going all night. But you
okay.
Please.
Okay, everyone, you ready for the answer? Yeah. Okay, this puts out 3.5 watts.
3.5 watts. There we go.
3.5. That is
what we there. I think Walter might have got pretty close with 2 watts.
Oh, yeah, very good.
That's really fun. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, so it just shows you how much the industry has changed.
Well, one of the best stories that you've just represented there that I think is probably really valuable is that, how old did you say that was? 25 years old?
Oh, no, that was 1979. Yes. That one was made.
I can't even do the maths. I'm that old. So let's say it's over 30 years. That's still working.
Yeah,
and
it still works.
It's a good example of just how stable solar is, and that's why it has been so successful, as opposed to other forms of your renewable technology, say, small wind or example. That's why solar really took over. Pricing, of course, the prices came down, as Mick will attest to, and also the reliability of the technology. So Mick, I wanted to ask you, actually, I was making a few notes as you're going through. What's been your in your mind, what have been the big changes that have really resonated with you over the years? What do you see now today that people do with solar that might not have been doing even 10 years ago or 20 years ago? What's really changed?
Yeah, look, I mean, that's pretty easy, that one, isn't it? It's got so much cheaper.
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago, and I'm sure some of the people on the webinar got one of these. You used to put in a 1.5 kilowatt solar system. Cost you, I don't know, 12,000, something like that for 1.5 kilowatts. The panel prices have gone down and down and down. I remember an industry meeting, I don't know, it was 1999 or something, and they were telling us about Grid Connect Solar and how it was going to have an impact on the industry and how much was going to be installed, and none of us believed it. All of the installers were all sitting around thinking, nah, there'll never be that much Grid Connect, none of this fancy Grid Connect stuff, it won't take off. It took off more than we actually thought. And the prices, of course, have got so much lower. Those 1.5 kilowatt systems from 12 years ago, I'm sure some of you have upgraded from those. You would have had a great feed-in tariff. You would have been in love with that. But of course, now people put on 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kilowatts if they can. And of course, you can use it to run anything. Now we're starting to run our vehicles and get rid of gas and so on. So, the massive change in price of everything, it's just getting so much easier. And it's changing the grid. And that's it.
So with the, obviously talking about pricing being a big driver, do you think that's been a factor for people not necessarily purchasing the product, but in terms of the dropping feed-in tariffs reducing has been a driver in the industry for equipment such as storage? Do you think that's one of the key drivers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's that old thing. I used to actually, with my feed-in tariff, I used to get the electricity suppliers to send me a check, an actual paper check, showing, how much credit I had. Once a year I used to do this, and I'd stick it up on the wall. And I would have $500, $600, $700, $800 credit from the electricity providers. And it was a great feeling. But of course now I think someone was talking to me about their bills just yesterday, and they were saying they had a $3 credit because the feed-in tariff has dropped so much. So this is driving people to put batteries on. So they're now thinking, okay, it's a much better idea. I take my surplus solar, instead of selling it and getting, a few dollars back, selling it to the grid, why don't I put it in a battery, use it overnight? And of course, if you design the system well, you can get to a point where you've got virtually no electricity consumption because your batteries are giving you everything you need overnight.
Yeah, well, I'm getting a few people asking a few questions about the technology, so I'll go there now. And I know we've had some good background in Envirogroup's history and things. As an installer, I mean, you've been around a while. As a company that delivers quotes and many quotes and things, is it something? Do you still have a preference to go to site to do quotes, or do you tend to find you're doing a lot of quotes remotely now? I know a lot of companies do that only.
Yeah, look, we prefer to go to site, especially with battery systems. There's a lot more issues that can come up with battery systems. You need room in your switchboard. So if you've got a switchboard that's only got a few spare slots, time to upgrade it with all the new electrical things you may be putting in. So we prefer to go to site. The other issue is sometimes it's tricky fitting the batteries in. So you can see the battery on the wall behind Duncan. So that's a perfect wall for solar because it's a great big wall, plenty of room there. It's a good thing. But, if you've got windows, if you've got doors nearby, you've got to have space around 600 on either side of the battery. You've got to have room above the battery as well. If you've got a gas meter, if you've got a central heating system down the side, if you've got other things, you've got to have a clearance around those. So that's tricky. The other one that's tricky is cable runs. Sometimes it's a real pain getting the cables through from the switchboard to where the battery position is. So, you know, that's a good thing to check. We do not absolutely always go to site, but we almost always do. And with batteries, we like to go to site every time, to be honest. So,
yeah, I might quiz you a bit more about switchboards, because I was at an Energy Safe event, and it came up, and it's quite an interesting one. I think it's worth people to be aware of regarding the electrical demand on homes. You know, majority of homes aren't built in the last 5 years. And electrical regulations and requirements have changed. And what we're seeing more in the industry, of course, is that homes are using more and more electricity. And the connection to the grid generally hasn't been designed to support EV chargers, even batteries and solar, and either discharging into the grid or pulling power from the grid. And there's been a lot of concern about the houses being able to support the demand, and the electrical switchboards not coping in the home. So you mentioned, Mick, about checking switchboards. How do you see that? Do you see that as being like an add-on or a critical element when it comes to designing systems?
Oh, look, it's a critical element. Let me give you an idea. So if you're doing a solar power system, often you'll have, with Enphase, you have a separate big board like the system controller, but with other solar systems, you might have a smart meter, and that can be 2 or 3 little slots in your switchboard. So imagine you've got 2 or 3 slots have got to go on your solar system, and then you've got to have the isolator for the inverter. So that's 1 slot. So let's say you've got your those two components. That's 4 slots alone. If you put in a induction cooktop, that's another slot. If you put in an aircon over about 3.5 kilowatts, you need another slot for each one of those. So let's say you put in a couple of those, that's 2 more slots. Put in an EV charger. If it's single phase, you need 1 slot. If it's 3 phase, you need 3 slots. So how many extra slots are we up to if you add those up? We're probably up to about 10. Yeah. So a lot of switchboards, they just don't have enough room. There's sometimes some tricky things or clever things we can do to increase the amount of space in a board, but quite often you do need to upgrade it. The thing that really annoys us, those of us in the industry, is when someone's had a switchboard upgrade and they've got 3 slots now. Before they had none, now they've got 3 spare slots. How's that going to go? The Sparkies come in, they've just done a minimal upgrade, 3, and you've got 3 or 4 spare slots. It's just not enough. You need 10. So
so that obviously can create costs to the homeowner, doesn't it? And that planning is a big one. It's hard it can be difficult as a homeowner to know what to expect in the future. But it's almost like, you want to maximize the benefit of doing an upgrade and really think about longer term. Maybe you do need to have a larger, switchboard to accommodate the equipment. It's a very common issue in the industry, actually. It's not an exciting topic, but it's a challenging one for the solar industry. We obviously aware a lot of people will get solar quotes and then maybe discovered that they haven't been informed maybe correctly about the need to upgrade until the installer's on site. Yeah. And I think having an installer do a site assessments is really helpful, because then they can allow for that and be clear up front, because it's one of those things that people don't like surprises when they've got a price for solar or storage, and that's a big one. I had
look, I'll jump in, Duncan. So Duncan is a true believer. He got into this because he believed in it and he was passionate about it. He goes back in this industry a long time, and so do I. And I do this because I believe in it too. And it's always disappointing when, you've got businesses that they are in it for the money, really. I was talking to my colleagues today about a company, and they're very effective at what they do. They're very effective at selling. They're quite aggressive. But the thing is that, please try to find someone who actually believes in it and is passionate about it, because they will tell you if you need a switchboard upgrade, and they will provide you with a good quality bit of equipment. And otherwise, you can run that risk that you end up getting something put in, you spend a heap of money, and ultimately it isn't a good solution, and you've really got to spend more money down the track. So just try to find, you don't have to go with a business like mine or someone else, but just try to find the people who actually care when you're getting solar. It really helps.
There's some good. Look, I'm going to ask you these questions, Matt, because these are good technical ones, and there's there's a lot of questions coming in. There's people who are asking about how do batteries handle high temperatures. I can talk for Enphase, but maybe you want to share a bit of that. And there's questions about fire protection, and also about position of the batteries, because in the photos, and actually I'll put these photos back up on the screen here for everyone to see. These photos here, we've got batteries in different positions, as you see on the slide I'm sharing. People are asking, how do they cope in outdoor locations as well? So if you'd like to share some insights there, and I can share in a bit of specifics about Enphase as well.
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in. The batteries have to be on a non-combustible surface, which means brick, which means concrete. Cement sheet can do it. So if it's a weatherboard house, we often put cement sheet behind the batteries. You've got those clearances, 600 mil on either side and 900 mil above. But also, if you've got something like that last one you can see with the 8 batteries, you've got to make sure that's a non-flammable material up above the battery. Yeah, that's right, that particular slide. So that's got to be non-flammable as well. Now, in practice, a lot of the battery fires, or virtually all the battery fires we hear about, are from electric bikes, electric skateboards, electric scooters, that kind of thing. There's almost no cases where there's any issue with these kind of batteries that we see in this kind of system. But with fire protection, you've just got to make sure that you do the right thing. So that's that. Now, hang on, you had a list of them, Duncan. What were the other ones?
Yeah, in terms of positioning, a lot of people are curious about the IP ratings. I don't know if you may recall on the microinverter or
so
55 on the battery, and 65 on the microinverter.
Yeah, the vast majority of solar batteries are IP rated, so it means you can put them outside. Now, if you put them outside, they'll be okay. If you put them in the sun, it's not particularly good for them. Electronic components that get hot don't tend to last as long. And even though the batteries are designed to operate at high-ish temperatures, it's not particularly good for them. So if we ever put them on a west-facing wall or a north-facing wall, we'll often put a sunshade over the top of them. West-facing wall, on the north side, the sunshades work very well. On the west side, as we know, in the afternoon, in summer, the sun drops in the sky, so the sun can shine under the sunshade and still give the battery a bit of heat. There are other ways to do it. It might be that you have a combination of a sunshade, and if there's also a side fence, that might also provide some shading. But keeping your batteries cool is a good thing to do, even though these batteries, the Enphase batteries and the other battery systems, are designed to deal with heat.
They are, and of course, and batteries, temperature has an impact on all equipment, even on solar panels on the roof. It reduces the performance of the solar panel the hotter the day is. And with a battery, you have to vent that heat, and you've got to have a way to cool it. The curious thing about the Enphase product, being the size that it is, a 5 kilowatt-hour battery, there are 6 small microinverters under the cover of those batteries in those images there that work as an all-in-one product. Because of the way that the battery is designed, Enphase doesn't require any fans inside the unit to physically, mechanically cool the battery. We call it passive cooling rather than active cooling. Now, the key with that is that you're not relying on this device that could potentially either bring debris and dirt in across the product, and you're just requiring natural ventilation. And that also does add for design benefit. And that design benefit is that we don't need as much clearance around the side of the unit. So it's 150 mil of clearance minimum is what we suggest at the between batteries, just to get the covers on and off. But there's very little requirement for additional airflow needs in the product. Now, that stability in the product allows for a wide-ranging operation. And so specifically the battery will operate ideally all the way up to around 40 degrees centigrade. Once, for any storage product, lithium or any other storage kind of cell that is used in the industry, once you go over 40 degrees, that's going to have an impact on the durability and the life of the product. So with any installation, just be armed with the knowledge and ask the questions of the installer. And I think, Mick, that's a fair thing to say. Just I say to the installer, is that the best location for it? Have you considered alternatives? And what I'd like to say to people is, okay, the west wall might be accessible, but you might have another area that you haven't sort of considered that may be on the south-facing wall, and certainly shading consideration is really worth it. Remember, that's going to be on the wall for 15 years, and you want to maximise the life of that product. Yeah. Yeah, and I've had actually people ask me the question. I don't know if you know the answer. I do know the answer, Mick, but I'll test you now. The flex-phase battery, is it available for two-phase houses? It's certainly available for one phase. You may have a larger home with 3 phases of supply in the house. It might have a large shed with a lot of it, maybe some machinery in the home, or maybe large heating cooling systems. Larger homes might be 3 phases, but the other homes that are more unique are 2-phase. We don't see as many in Melbourne in the city areas, but we tend to see them in the more rural areas, what we call fringe of grid, more remote grids. We might see a 2-phase connections to houses as well. So do you know the answer to that, Mick? Can we run 2-phase?
Yeah, look, I reckon we can do 2-phase, Duncan.
I like your answer. So 2-phase for the microinverters and for the solar system, and also 2-phase for the flex-phase battery product. And so with the 2-phase system setup, speak to your installer. Installer will speak to your Enphase, and we'll help support the design for that system. Not as common. About 30% of homes are 3-phase, depending on the network you're in. Some suburbs have minimal proportion of houses are 3-phase. Majority of homes would be single-phase as well. But if you're not sure, again, it's ask the installer, and they'll be able to check you a couple of things on the house, and you'll be able to confirm quite quickly. There's some good questions about panel upgrades, Mick. We've being around the industry a while, I think this is a great answer for us. So there's been a rapid uptake of solar and output of solar panels. Is it not greater value to upgrade panels, say, every 5 to 8 years rather than buying current expensive batteries? That's a great question. I love that question.
Yeah, look, panel upgrades are a tricky one, aren't they? Because I know that I find if something still works, I prefer not to throw it out. I think, well, let's let it run its life and so on. But the thing about solar is it's been changing so much. So those panels, those systems that were put in 12 years ago, 1,500 watt arrays, they were typically, 190 watts, 195 watts, those panels. These days, they're 450 to 500. So isn't that tricky? What do? Do you keep your old panels? And often people come to us and they say, well, can I keep the old ones and then add some new ones as well? But the thing is, the real estate the old ones are taking up, you could probably get, where you've got your 1.5 kilowatts, you could probably potentially have 3 or 4 in the same area. So really, it's a tricky one, and I think you've got to make the call on, when you upgrade your panels. But I think there's certainly a point at which you've just got to, let your panels go and get some new ones. Because you can do so much more. So, different people judge that a different way. But yeah, I think at some stage, upgrade your panels. I know when we pull panels out, we try to find a home for them, someone who can use them. We don't always find we're successful. Otherwise, we send them off to a recycler who does pull out as much of the useful components as they can. And yeah, sooner or later, it's good to upgrade panels, and the industry is doing a lot of panel upgrading at the moment.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mick. And I see a lot in the field, people rushing to upgrade systems and adding batteries and then maybe adding panels on the roof of the home. There is a strong argument, right, when you've got an existing PV solar system, grid connected system, and you're adding batteries into the home. People will look at the size of the solar system and think, well, you're adding storage. Ideally, you need a suitable capacity of solar to be able to charge those batteries that that are being added to the home. So we may see older systems get expanded. Two ways you can go about it, as Mick said. You can expand by adding. Enphase is actually, the microinverter system is very popular for adding on to existing sites, because you can add a few extra panels on the roof to the existing system, and it's relatively straightforward to do if the customer's not going to remove the entire system. But expanding the system is certainly a consideration. So that design piece, Mick, have you ever sort of come across customers that have maybe put storage on their home, but maybe they just don't have enough solar, or hasn't been considered maybe by the installation company, and they've been, and that's really caused some challenges. What's generally the impact of that you've seen?
Yeah, that's a good point, Duncan. So with the recent rebate, which wound down at the end of last month, the installation time for those, there were a lot of big battery systems going in, 20, 30, 40, 50 kilowatts. And the rebate was such that it was quite affordable to put in a really big battery system. But some of those people might have only had, say, 3 kilowatts of solar. Now, on average, you get about 4 hours worth of the maximum solar output a day. So let's say you've got 3 kilowatts of solar, you might get 12 kilowatts of electricity that you can use from that. Now, if you've got a 50 kilowatt hour battery, how is your 12 kilowatts going to fill up that 50 kilowatt hour battery? It isn't. And the thing is that even with that 12 kilowatts you're getting out of your solar panels, some of that is going to get used in the home during the day as well. So there can be a real mismatch between the amount of solar you've got and the amount of batteries you've got. So that's something to consider. Now, the rebate's changed, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later, but you can still get the rebate at virtually the same level up to about 15 kilowatt hours of battery storage. So that's good. How much energy do you need? A lot of homes might use 15, 20 kilowatt hours of electricity a day. So if you've got, and let's say you're using half of that when the sun's down, so you need about 10. So if you've got 15 kilowatt hours of battery, because you didn't get the rebate before, you can now get that rebate on the 15 kilowatt hours of battery. That'll pretty well carry you through the night if you're careful with your energy use. And then, you need your solar ideally to match that. You put some extra in because, in winter you don't get much solar. But, if you were going to have 15 kilowatt hours of solar, I don't know, if you had between if you were going to have 15 kilowatt hours of battery, and you wanted to charge that up, if you assume for winter you get about 2 peak sun hours, which is a term we use, that means that you'd need, between 5 and 10 kilowatts of solar would be plenty.
Yeah, that's a great answer, Mick, because obviously there's rule of thumbs and there's experience from just historically doing solar and knowing what works. But those numbers they resonate. They do resonate across most homes. And of course, everyone's needs are slightly different, and there can be adjustments that are made to that capacity. There were quite a few questions that came in about sizing batteries and things like that. So how do you go about determining what a client needs in the home for say storage capacity and solar? What is there a process you go through or tools that you use?
Yeah. So we can spreadsheet it, we can work it out via a range of mechanisms, but it's really a matter of talking to a customer about what they want to do. If they just want to run a basic amount of energy consumption, so they've got their fridge, they've got a bit of heating and cooling maybe, they've got lighting, they've got computer, TV, entertainment stuff, they don't need a huge system. If you're looking at their energy bill and they're using 10 kilowatt hours a day, well, a 5 kilowatt hour battery might be enough. If you're looking at that overnight consumption. But we tend to say to people, look, try to design for the future. If you're thinking of an induction cooktop down the track, okay, allow for that. If you're going to put in an aircon because you maybe want to get rid of a gas heater, then allow for that. So, you know, panels are cheap, batteries are subsidised by the government. You might as well go oversized and allow for future expansion. Where it really gets exciting is if you've got an electric vehicle. Because the batteries in those things are amazing. You know, you can have a 60 kilowatt-hour battery, which is heaps. In which case, you just max out your solar, and you know, you could put a fair bit of battery capacity in as well. So you might find it's worthwhile. So it's really a matter of thinking of how much energy you need, multiply that by, I don't know, 1.5 times to allow for future expansion if you're not sure what you're going to do, and you really use the economies of scale. Part of the thing is, you know, sparkies are expensive. I don't know if you've noticed this. Tradies are expensive. They are actually quite expensive. I mean, I employ them, and I'm actually one. I did my apprenticeship about 5 years ago. So if you're going to get them out there, it doesn't cost that much more in labour to get them to put up another 5 or 6 panels, and it doesn't cost that much more in labour to put in a bigger battery. So, you know, save a bit of money. The cost per kilowatt of solar and batteries is a bit cheaper if you put in a bigger system. So go for it.
It's a bit of food for thought. And I think, you know, and putting the Enphase bent on that one, that's the idea about modular flexibility and expandability. So, you know, instead of 2 batteries, you can add a third. You may decide, and we've seen customers do this, say, well, I'm not quite ready for that third one yet, but because the Enphase system is so modular, it's very easy to add on an additional battery or an additional panel on the roof over time as well. So I guess as manufacturers, we're all trying to provide you with a range of solutions to meet your requirements and needs. And it's just trying to find all of the right things that fit your requirements. And I think Enphase do a pretty good job at providing a range of products to meet your needs. Now, there's so many questions flying in, which is fantastic because everyone's really on the game tonight. But I love this question, Mick, and it's sort of a challenge question to you. And you're talking about right-sizing batteries and solar, and people are like, yeah, but whatever, you know, I've got free power now because retailers are saying I can get free electricity overnight. So why don't I just whack in some more batteries and charge from the free power? I mean, it's an interesting, we could have a few debates about that one too, right? But, you know, what's your view on that? Is it take advantage of that sort of zero or cheap tariff at night time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Will it last forever? You know?
Yeah, so there's this tariff that's coming in with, you know, where you get free energy in the middle of the day. So why not charge your batteries up and use it at night? If you're getting free power in the middle of the day, and then you can use that power at night, it's costing you nothing at night. So I think that's a great thing, and you can do that with Enphase batteries and other batteries. So I think that's a good thing to do. But if you can put solar on the roof as well, you could compromise on the solar. And just use the midday power. But there is a bit of a risk, and that is that they're going to change the tariffs again down the track.
Yeah, correct. And we've seen that with the export tariffs, of course. So again, I think one of the elements of solar and storage is it's something you can control as a system owner. You can put that in and you can control that energy source in your house. By leaving it up to the retailer to dictate to you the pricing will really shift your mindset about when it's good value and when it's not. And over time, we've seen pricing erode or pricing increase, and then that really does change decisions over time. That's what's really the industry's responded to with storage as well, and giving people more opportunities with solar to use that energy in the home rather than giving it to the grid for low cost.
Yeah. Hey, I just managed to get the chat so I can actually see it. So, and I can see a question there. Isn't it realistic to say that today's batteries in 5 years will be totally archaic? The technology is changing all the time. We all know that one of the big challenges is when do you jump, you know? When do you jump for an EV? When do you jump for solar? A colleague of mine, Frank, who's up in Castlemaine, he always says to people, well, look, you know, the sooner you jump, the sooner you start saving money.
Exactly.
So, well, it's up to you. You can wait or you can jump. But right now, I think the technology, the graph, if you looked at the graph, going to, the cost graph, I think at the moment, the cost of batteries has come down quite a long way. We've got a good rebate as well. And so those combinations of the cost reduction and the rebate mean it's not a bad time to jump with batteries. 5 years ago, the batteries have developed a long way from there, but now I think the technology is maturing to some extent. And solar technology, it's very mature and it's very cheap. So, I mean, sure, hold off if you want to, but I think it's not a bad time to act. And it's a lovely feeling, when you're getting nothing for your feed-in tariff, to put it in your batteries and use it overnight, or get it in the middle of the day for free, and then you're kind of beating them all. You've got your freebie power overnight.
I had a fantastic story the other day, and I think I'll share it now because it just reminded me of a story. This is a New Zealand solar installer I work with, and he's put in some Enphase batteries out at the back of Canterbury near Christchurch. And I was asking him how the systems have gone that he went in, and he said, well, it's really interesting because his system owner rang him to complain because their batteries kept working, which have been kind of ironic because they said their homeowners kept ringing them up and telling them they could see their lights on because the power, the homeowners in the neighborhood, their mates, their power kept dropping out, but this one house kept running. And the customer had no idea because the storage system is now so seamless between grid. When the main grid's available, when the grid fails, people don't actually notice when the system switches over to battery because the technology now is so fast and so seamless that it's actually very hard to tell unless you're looking out the window at night time and seeing the other lights in the street not being on. So it was quite an interesting anecdote, and they said it's been a few times their neighbours have rung them up and said, "Hey, your lights are still on."
It's really fun when that happens. Yeah. You kind of want to black out so you can sit there with all your lights on.
Well, technology with the apps now, I don't know, Mick, how your customers go and what their experiences are, but do you generally get people liking the information they get? Of course, Enphase is very... got a lot of information in the apps. Do you find that customers like having that information and it helps them?
Yeah, people love getting on their phones and, having a look at how their battery's going and how full it is and, how much solar's coming in. So the apps are very intelligent these days. They're very clever. They give you a lot of information. And of course, you can do more than just look at them. You can then start to manage your energy use as well. So you might go, well, okay, we're not going to do the washing or the dishwasher today. We'll do it tomorrow because it's not sunny and my battery's a bit low. Or you, might look at your battery capacity and make another decision. But yeah, the apps are really nice these days.
Yeah, they are good and really helpful. There's even a button in the Enphase app that can actually allow you to remotely make your system go into a backup mode, so it can actually switch over to the battery. And people like to show their friends it and switch the app to make their batteries go in backup mode in the home. So you do have those options and functions. But again, more and more with technology, I think every system now, I would assume that pretty much every system now requires some sort of form of technology connected to it. In your view, Mick, because there was a question that came up in the chat regarding how should systems be connected online? Should they be connected on Wi-Fi or should they be connected by cable, say an Ethernet cable in the home? It was a good question, and it's a question that I often have discussions with installers often about this, whether it's worth spending the extra time putting a cable in.
Oh, yeah, look, and this is a great question because it's getting... Monitoring has created a lot of extra visibility of systems, which is great, but it's also a major headache for people like us because Wi-Fi sometimes drops out, sometimes, people change passwords or whatever, or other things happen, and the monitoring drops out, and then we've got to go and problem solve it. If you've got a hardwire connection to your modem, you have much more reliable monitoring. and it makes it much easier. Because if you want to, if you've got your Wi-Fi set up and the monitoring starts to drop out or it's a bit patchy, you'll ring us up and we'll try to help you over the phone. And if we can't help you over the phone, then we'll say, well, look, we can send an electrician out, one of our techs out, to try to solve this for you, but we have to charge. We don't want to charge you money. We want you to be happy without having to pay more money for someone else to come out. Pay a little bit extra to get an extra cable put in, get your system wired back to your modem so you've got more reliable communication. It's a much better outcome. So we've been in business for like 22 years, 23 years. We've only been doing monitoring as on virtually every system for about 3 or 4 years. But, we've got more than 10,000 systems out there. Think about it. If all of those were monitored, how many phone calls would we get? Now, we love answering the phone, but imagine it if let's say every person who had a system rang up every few years. It just gets crazy. So, make your monitoring reliable by getting a hardwired connection. Much better idea.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Obviously, it's very simple nowadays. We made it easy to do that. One of the things that, and that's another discussion Enphase has, and I definitely err on the more conservative side of running a cable based on my systems. And when people move house, a new owner comes in and they can't connect the system because they don't have any information about the system's Wi-Fi setup. If the system has a cable, it's as simple as just taking that cable and plugging it into the new modem or router, because the system is designed to automatically connect to the Enphase cloud. And that's a very good, robust system. One of the other things with storage that Enphase does is we also include a cellular modem on the controller that we saw on the photo of the wall earlier. And that has a modem in there, and it's a backup device, so that if the internet drops out in the home, the system will revert to the cellular modem and keep reporting data once every 6 hours until the internet's resumed. And the important aspect of doing that, it means that in Enphase we can do diagnosis remotely for fault finding or discovery of a system, and so we've got that constant communication. And over the life of the installation, with that data, you've got all the data, so you can access the condition of the batteries, how many times they've been cycled, so you know what the durability is of the batteries, and you know how much available energy is left over that warranty period. So it's very good data that's available through an internet connection. Now I'm just going to check through and see how we're going, because I am aware it's getting the top of the hour. We had a lot of you have been on the call, the webinar, a long time, and I understand that we did say it was around an hour long. I think if there's anything final to add in the chat and things, we'll be happy to answer questions. Now, what we do is we're going to scope out all the questions. I can see we've got over 100 questions came through. So we'll go through and scope those through, and we'll happily either get Envirogroup to directly answer those. If you've got direct support, what sort of region do you work in, Mick? And we'll probably give people contacts in the areas you work in. Yeah, sure. Look, all of you're from all over Australia. I'd love to help you wherever you are, but of course that's not possible. So we basically will work in Melbourne Metro. So we'd love to help you if you're in that area. If you're further afield, there are other great Enphase people or other great solar businesses as well. So yeah, but if you're local to us, we'd love to help. Yeah, and we're happy to pass the details on if you've agreed to that in the chat or in the webinar sign on. Again, if you've got questions and you'd like further help, happy to put in the chat box. Otherwise, at the end of the webinar, you can fill in the comment box at the end, and we'll follow that up for you in the next week, or in the maximum of a week turnaround for that. We've obviously got a lot of housekeeping to do after tonight. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is wrap up the webinar, Mick. Thanks for that. And I just want to put up some slides regarding the rebates, and let's just find those on the screen here, and upcoming webinars. So let's just begin. I'll just put up a QR code for the upcoming webinars. We're running a sort of a third in the homeowner webinar series that we've run this block, which is with Plenty. Plenty are actually, it's an interesting one. They're a finance company, and they're going to talk about the numbers behind solar and storage. And it's a new take. It's going to be quite a new topic for myself as well. I'd be really interested in the discussion with Plenty, and we're running that on the 16th of June from 7 to 8 p.m. again, Melbourne time. So more than welcome to scan the QR code. If you come to the webinar, you'll probably get an invite to that as well online. I'll just wait 1 second. I'm sure people are pulling out the phones out of their pockets to take a photo of that, but you'll get this again in the recording. Let's just go across now and have a quick summary of that Cheaper Home Batteries program and next steps. So the Home Battery Rebate Program, that has been a very generous rebate, and that was adjusted on the 1st of May, probably to bring it in line with a more practical design of storage as well. So you can get up to 30% discount on eligible battery systems. So an eligible battery system must be code compliant or quote compliant. Enphase batteries are eligible, and they meet those requirements. Now, those there is a discount available up to 50 kilowatt hours of storage, but now there's a tier, and the rebate will drop down, as Mick mentioned earlier tonight. So the first 14 kilowatt hours, you'll get the full rebate for that value. So, for example, if you've got Enphase, that's 3 of the IQ batteries. That's 15 kilowatt hours of batteries. The 14 kilowatt hours of storage in those batteries will get the full maximum rebate. And then how many kilowatt hours you install in addition. So you might put 4 batteries on the wall of the home. That 5th battery, the 5 kilowatt hours, plus the 1 extra from the first 3, and 6 kilowatt hours will be available at 60% of that total rebate value. So the rebate's still available, and it's still very generous, and you get that on a sliding scale over that 50 kilowatt hours. So we do have people ask, do we still get the full rebate on the first component if we've got more than 14 kilowatt hours of storage? So that answer is yes, you do. In terms of compliant quote, the things I'll highlight there, those dot points there are really key things to ask your installers. It's really important because they, in order to give fully compliant with the rebate program, they need to give you reasoning about why your battery size suits your solar installation. So as we talked earlier this evening, if your solar is too small and your battery is too big, your solar is not going to charge that battery. So do you have the correct design, or have you made allowances for that, or understand fully how the operation of that system to maximize the operation of that battery? The second point there, the inverter model and charge and discharge limit. So if you've got an Enphase system or a storage system, it's a 5 kilowatt hour battery, and it has a, say for example, a 3.84 kilowatts charge and discharge on each of the batteries you install. So that number increases, of course, depending on the number. And so also you need to include, in the quote needs to include or take into account your energy needs, electricity needs in the home. Mick and I discussed this tonight. Think about the switchboards. Think about your future needs. Has this system been designed to incorporate all of the changes in your household energy use over time or in the next few years? And then there needs to be a statement based from the manufacturer and the person selling you the product that it states what the lifetime throughput megawatt hours and cycle limits are on that battery. Now, I had a slide earlier this evening. We talked about 6,000 cycles, 15-year warranty, and it's got 4.8 megawatt hours of throughput energy. All of that's available through Enphase's product. It's really important to know those numbers because that's going to tell you a story about how long that product's going to perform for you under warranty conditions. Also, and look at those degradation over time of the product, warranty, as well as does it have access to a VPP? The VPP is a retailer that can discharge the battery at wholesale rates, and people will do that to maybe generate some extra value from that rebate. Remember, you're cycling the battery more, it's going to be working harder, so you have to determine if that's going to meet your requirements over that system design. So remember, size is a fuel tank and throughput is the engine life. That's a nice quote there on the slide. And so just to, for the final slide of tonight's session, again, thanks to everyone for joining. If you want to speak to a specialist, let us know. We'll put you in touch with Mick if he can support you in his installer network area. Otherwise, we will help you along with your questions, and hopefully we can help continue to support you with your needs in solar and storage. But thank you very much. I really appreciate everyone joining in. You know, please make a point of registering for the next event. Even if you can't make it, that will be recorded. And if you register, you'll get access to the recording as well. So it'll be great to have you online. So thanks again, Mick. Really appreciate you joining in. It's been great to hear the stories, your anecdotes and your experience. It's been, I think, very valuable discussion tonight.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Great talking to you.